Guess who's back, back, back.
Back again, again, again.
Diddley's back, back, back.
Tell a friend, friend, friend.
Diddley's back,
Diddley's back,
Diddley's back.
Diddley's back.
Do, 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 do.
We created a podcast.
Because nobody likes TV no more.
They want the diddly because we're hipper.
So if you want the diddly, this is what we'll give you.
A bunch of Simpsons facts mixed with some trivia.
Season 7 may no longer be.
But 8's so great we're filled with glee.
So there's only one more line left for me. Welcome back to Best Darn Diddly. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and we are indeed back for a brand new season, Season 8. And kicking it off, as always, joining me for this ride through the golden age, and if we're not here yet, I don't know when it begins. It is your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm glad to announce our guest, Eminem. Oh, wait, no, that's a lie.
Card subject to change.
Well, we could be a little horrifying today, Miles, and be naughty, I guess, since it is that kind of episode. I know you're excited to talk about this one, so all I can do is throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the Mumbly Joe. That's right, folks. He's the son of the soil himself, Miles.
That is what I prefer to be called.
It ain't gonna happen.
Yes, sir. We are talking about a Treehouse of Horror. Treehouse of Horror 7, to be specific, as a season premiere. Weird, right?
I thought we did this last season, too.
Negative, sir. Last season, there was a little episode by the name of Who Shot Mr. Burns that opened up the episode? Or opened up the season?
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that one.
And actually, I don't think Treehouse of Horror was until, 6th or 7th down the row, man. But it has been a while since we reviewed those.
It has been about a season since we saw one of those.
Yeah, but this is actually the first Treehouse of Horror to double as a season premiere. However, it won't be the last. Season 11, 12, 14, 15, and 23 also all debut with the holiday special.
Good old 23.
This is a good one, though. There's a lot to talk about in this episode. A lot of parody, actually. Treehouse of Horror 7 originally aired on October 27th, 1996. This one gets a pass, but it is definitely keeping in the spirit of Season 7 by not featuring a chalk gag. None of the Treehouse of Horrors do that I'm aware of, however. It does open with a special opening. It is Homer carving a pumpkin, though he's not doing a very good job, and he very quickly catches himself entirely on fire somehow.
The other thing that caught my eye about this, that it's a Josh and Bill season because that's literally the opening. There's no through-line story. It's almost like they needed to save more time for each individual episode.
It was super quick. I mean, if it's 7 to 9 seconds in total, I'd be surprised. And it does bring up in blood red letters the Treehouse of Horror 7, or say the Simpsons Halloween special. Now I'm blanking on what it says.
Treehouse of Horror 7.
Okay, because they sometimes say the Simpsons Halloween special, even though they're titled Treehouse of Horror.
I believe I was writing the title in my notes at that part, and I saw the Blood 7 because I forgot which number it was for a second.
Nice. Did you need to do some Rocky math?
Yes. Rocky 5 plus Rocky 2 equals Rocky 7, Adrian's Revenge.
Exactly. You can never forget Roman numerals as long as you remember that phrase.
Romian. Oh, Romian.
Numerals.
Wherefore art thou, Romian?
Exactly. This episode does also feature the usual creepy credits for the 6th time now, actually. Adding the special touch to the holiday... holiday special. And as you mentioned, it's a Josh and Bill episode, so they pretty quickly jump right into the first segment. There is actually a very brief couch gag where all of the Simpsons, one after another, run into the living room where the Grim Reaper is sitting on the couch, and they actually run into his finger and fall over dead.
I guess that's the only way not to make it terrifying that death is killing the family, is to have them kind of cause it themselves.
I guess so, but it's still pretty dark, though. There's definitely darker moments in this episode.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Ooh, nice, yeah. The first segment that we start with here is The Thing and I guess before we dive into that, I will mention on the commentary for this episode, it was a pretty full house, as there was a lot of writers on this episode, of course. There was the showrunner Josh Weinstein, Matt Groening, David Cohen, Mike Anderson, who was actually the director, Dan Graney, Ken Keeler, and Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer Simpson, as well as Kang, Kodos, and several others.
And Clinton
and Dole.
Exactly. Bob Dole.
So The Thing and I, we open up where it's nighttime in the Simpsons household, and they're hearing strange noise. Specifically, Bart and Lisa are hearing strange noises coming from the attic. Bart and Lisa kind of talk to each other and think, oh, maybe it's the cat, but nope, she was sleeping with Lisa, and oh my god, that poor animal. I don't even like cats that much by any means, but I do feel bad for any animal that's subject to being dressed up like Lisa had dressed up Snowball too.
Had little booties on and a little shawl, like, oh my gosh.
Awful. The next morning, however, at breakfast, the kids bring it up to their parents. Did you guys hear something moving around in the attic last night?
Attic? Oh, that's silly. Seriously, though, don't even go up there.
Homer, isn't it about time for the,
Yeah, I'll go feed it.
So, Homer walks casually, like completely nonchalantly, whistling away, over to the fridge where he grabs a bucket of fish heads and then starts singing, fish heads, do 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 do. Guess there's going to be a lot of singing on this show. But
can we get Eminem back, please?
The funny thing about this is actually a real song called Fish Heads by the band Barnes and Barnes.
I've never heard of that band or that song.
Nor have I, but isn't it fitting that they had that perfect title for this episode's needs?
And Homer just so blatantly, like, not hiding anything at all.
I love that about these episodes, because we're supposed to assume, like, being it's a Treehouse of Horror, like, again, it doesn't really exist in the real Simpsons universe. It breaks all the rules, and this one, especially, not this segment, but this Treehouse of Horror breaks a lot of Simpsons rules. However, in this segment, it's so funny because, yeah, Homer's just so nonchalant about it that, like, it's like the kids would have obviously been well aware of this years ago.
Yeah.
The kids actually follow Homer up to the attic. They can't see what's going on, but they just hear, like, animalistic sounds of eating. What's up there?
Is it a monster?
We have to know.
Tell us what's the secret.
No more questions. I work my butt off to feed you 4 kids, and all you do is... What?
3? We have 3 kids, Homer.
Yeah, 3 nosy kids. And you know what happens to nosy kids who ask too many questions?
No, what? Does something happen? Does something happen to nosy kids who ask questions? What happens?
I love the call of the bluff here. The asking the parents for info is quickly turning into a dead end, so the kids wait for their opportunity, the parents leave, and they decide they are going to investigate. They creep up into the attic where, first of all, we'll say that there are a lot of memorabilia from previous episodes in this one. It's kind of cool.
Another Josh and Bill staple right there, being fans of the show.
Agreed. Yeah, they absolutely like to put those little Easter eggs in the episodes, and this one is absolutely no different. Things that I noticed were, and some of them I did read, but others I just saw that weren't listed. One was the B Sharps album. Was it the Mary Worth phone? I can never remember. It's like some comic strip that would never make sense for Bart to have. But Mary Worth phone, the Ringo painting. I believe there was a case of the Simpson and Son tonic. I think that's what they were going for, though I couldn't clearly make out a label. There's definitely an I Didn't Do It shirt over in the corner, and it was pointed out to me. I saw the guitar, but it was pointed out on IMDb that is actually specifically the guitar that Bart plays during the Otto show.
Yeah, it's the one Otto gives him. The Simpsons, the complete guide to the favorite family guidebook that I have also mentions an Itchy and Scratchy cell from Lady Bouvier's Lover. And it also introduced the Lisa Lionheart boxes are up there. And the last thing was the Spine Melter 2000. So that awesome chair that Homer's brother got him.
Oh, wow.
Is up there.
It's tragic that thing's sitting in the attic.
Yeah. Like, why?
Yeah, I would have that dead center in the living room. But also amongst all of the leftover stuff from previous episodes, we see a new thing that we would love to see an episode about one day. It's Homer's autobiography, Homer, I Hardly Knew Me, which is actually a parody title of the 1972 book, Johnny, We Hardly Knew Ye, which is Memories of John F. Kennedy.
Oh.
Yeah. However, the kids, while going through the attic, also quickly start to notice some other unusual things, such as chains that have been broken over in the corner of the attic. And then they actually see a creature emerge in the shadows. And I'm going to admit right here that when I was a kid, when I first saw this episode, I remember this is one of the few Treehouse of Horror segments that ever, like, scared me even a little bit. Like, that dark figure in the attic was actually something that was a truly eerie animation, the way they portrayed that.
See, it didn't get me, and I have a feeling the reason why is, if I remember correctly, I think they kind of showed Hugo for like a split second in the previews for this episode, or at least like they gave you a real good shot of his silhouette, so like you kind of knew a little bit going into it. For some reason, that just stands out in my mind, so I feel like it might have been ruined, the surprise of it, I mean.
The fact that you maybe saw a preview maybe desensitized you a little bit, but I definitely remember just a little bit being creeped out, and I also remember the feeling I had at the end of the episode, which we'll talk about more when we get there, of course, but the kids run away fleeing in fear, and I absolutely love the next little joke. It's a visual joke that I almost marked as my favorite joke, but I opted against it because I was tired of the ridicule and the harassment that I take on a weekly basis.
You have no follow-through on that whatsoever. You still have to point out that at one point it was your favorite joke.
We see there are 3 Simpsons kid-sized vases. There's a Bart, a Lisa, and a Maggie. And we hear muffled talking. Lisa asks, Bart, do you think it's safe?
I don't care. I can't breathe in here.
And you think that they're about to pop out of these vases, but they just all 3 come bursting out of the closet that was just sitting off to the side of the shot.
Clever, tricky camera angles.
It's silly, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And right then, we actually see Marge and Homer come in with another great line. See, Marge? Who needs a car wash when you can just drive around in the rain? Mom! Dad! We saw something in the attic! We saw something in the attic! You went in the attic? I'm very disappointed and terrified. So we see Homer takes the traditional head of the household role where he grabs a club and he goes up to see what's happening, and sure enough, he knows that
a club sandwich.
He notices that it has escaped, leaving just chains and a dish full of fish bones. Everyone is horrified, but Marge wastes no time in getting a hold of the man she knows that can help.
Yes, Doctor, it's what we've always feared. It's loose. Hugo is loose. See you soon.
I love the little casual see you soon. Of course, at this moment, Lisa and Bart are both wondering exactly what we, the audience, are. Who or what is Hugo?
I'm afraid we haven't been entirely honest with you, Bart. You see, you have a brother.
Lisa gets excited here. So I have 2 brothers?
Lisa, please!
Just shoves her to the side and immediately starts consoling Bart. Because you see, Bart, when you were born, there was an irregularity. a monstrous irregularity. That's actually Dr. Hibbert who comes in and adds the monstrous irregularity.
I don't know where he appeared from, but this is all very cliche horror movie.
Absolutely cliche. In fact, since you bring that up, the Simpsons commentary did note that this episode does have a lot of similarities to the 1982 horror movie Basket Case. However, the writer of this episode, of this segment, is actually, adamantly not a horror fan, does not enjoy horror movies at all, and had not actually seen this film when he wrote this idea. However, I'm sure that some of the ideas were probably put in the, additional post-writing process.
I would hope so.
But they did not base it off of that, like the other segment that we'll see here in a minute was definitely based off of something. For now, though, Dr. Hibbert goes on to explain what has happened. Because you see, when Bart was born, he was actually one of 2 Siamese twins.
I believe they prefer to be called conjoined twins.
And hillbillies prefer to be called sons of the soil, but it ain't gonna happen. We do a flashback with Dr. Hibbert narrating, and I always love when we flashback. Dr. Hibbert always has great haircuts. In this case, he's rocking a huge afro. We see Hibbert is actually presenting the twins to Marge, and immediately one twin starts just absolutely eating the other twin's arm, just chewing on it very, very painfully and aggressively. And Marge immediately kind of covers up her breasts and is like, I think I'll bottle feed that one.
The routine soul smear, which, by the way, I want to know what that is, confirmed the presence of pure evil. It was then I knew the only option was to separate you 2 immediately.
Using a paper cutter. Science.
You both need to sign these.
But the question remained, what to do with poor Hugo? I mean, he's too crazy for Boys Town and too much of a boy for Crazy Town. He's an outcast. So they did the only humane thing they could think of.
We chained Hugo up in the attic like an animal and fed him a bucket of fish heads once a week.
It saved our marriage.
And I want to point out one thing that I love about the animation department, because when this aired, I actually was like, Bart Scar is on the wrong side, just thinking it was an animation error. But I love that you can actually see Bart Scar when they're talking about their scars.
I agree. You can just kind of see it peeking under his shirt. And then, of course, though, Bart actually brings up the scar himself because he's like, you believe any of this? I mean, if any of that were true, wouldn't I have a big, hideous scar, right? So the hunt for Hugo is on. Everybody in the family leaves the house to go search, except for Bart, who locks himself in entirely isolated. I will say I really like the line. Homer says, we'll search out every place a sick, twisted, solitary misfit might run to.
I'll start with Radio Shack. Bart, you stay home and tape the hockey game.
So this is where we see now Bart is entirely on his own, and almost immediately after locking 6 locks worth of door locks, he hears rustling of chains and immediately is like, you're here, aren't you?
Yes, Bart, I never left you.
Bart's obviously scared to death in this moment. He has no idea what Hugo wants. He's asking him, in fact, what do you want from all this? What's your end game here, man?
I went mad after they tore us apart. But I'll be sane once I sew us back together.
But you'll kill us both.
No, it's easy. Look, I've been practicing. I made a pigeon rat.
Oh, and this miserable-looking creature that's a back-to-back sewn-together pigeon and rat. First, the pigeon starts to fly away, but because the rat is hanging out underneath him, he ends up not making it through the window he aimed for. So when they fall to the ground, the rat tries to crawl through a hole, but gets stuck because of the pigeon being on his back.
But that's some sturdy stitching right there. They didn't fall apart.
That's true, and they're both still alive, so he's on his A game in terms of the mad science.
Well, let's get started. You want to be on the right or the left?
Fortunately, while it looks like things are grim, because Bart's actually full on tied up in the attic at this point, but right at the moment that Hugo is about to actually put a needle and thread into Bart's side, Dr. Hibbert shows up and starts talking to Hugo.
There, Hugo. I understand. All those years caged up in here. Why, you've probably never even seen your own face in the mirror, have you? Here.
And we see Dr. Hibbert holding a frame, and so he holds it up to Hugo, who just looks mesmerized, and he's kind of looking into it, trying to see his reflection. We see that he's actually just looking through nothing right at Dr. Hibbert's face, and just long enough for you to realize what's happening goes by before Dr. Hibbert just flat out punches this monstrous child in the face, knocking him out cold.
I think this is my favorite gag in the episode, because the blank look on Hibbert's face while he's holding the frame up, and how Hugo is so charmed by this.
You're in good company, because all of the animators said that this was absolutely their favorite joke in the episode as well.
Oh my gosh.
And just in this moment, Homer and Marge come running in, and Homer's screaming, "We think we saw Hugo at the airport. He was boarding a plane to Switzerland." But then he sees Hugo and is like, oh.
You know, isn't it interesting how the left, or sinister twin, is invariably the evil one? I have this theory that... Wait a minute. Hugo's scar is on the wrong side. He couldn't have been the evil left twin. That means the evil twin is, and always has been, Bart.
And we do a shot that has a long hold on Bart just kind of standing there looking casual like he normally does, and he finally responds, don't look so shocked.
Well, chalk this one up to carelessness on my part.
And again, the way he delivers this line so casually is what makes it just so funny, because Hibbert's just like, oh well. But then they decide, there should be a way to set everything right. And we cut to family dinner later that evening.
Care for a drumstick, Hugo?
And we see Hugo sits in Bart's place at the table, and he devours a chicken leg just like a monster.
Mom, Hugo's eating his napkin.
And everybody just chuckles. This is the part that sticks with me, and again, this episode, for whatever reason, this segment really bothered me. This segment stood with me as a kid for a while, because I feel like this part was really, really creepy to me. This idea that their family just basically flipped their roles, because we cut to a shot of Bart peeking through the vents of the air conditioning ducts. And he's like, "Hey, can I please have some turkey?"
No, you finish your fish heads, then we'll talk. Close.
And she just so coldly closes the vent, cutting off our view from Bart entirely. And I thought it was really funny, just because this one is a dark ending that stuck with me. However, as a child, I had absolutely no qualms about the absolute horrific ending of the second segment that we're about to talk about.
But no, I get it, man. It's the fact that Bart is a character that you love, and this is the 8th season of the show. So he has a bad ending because he's been chained up in the attic. So I can understand why it terrifies you and sticks with you.
Right. I think the idea of it just being the character that I still connected to most at this time. And again, at that time, I really didn't connect to Lisa at all. So
for all you know, it's always been Hugo since then, taking over Bart's role.
It's maybe Miles is the other twin. You don't know.
Oh, you're definitely the evil twin.
I just can't grow a goatee. I just said that I didn't connect with Lisa, but I absolutely love the next segment of this episode. However, we're going to talk about it after we get back from a very quick break. We'll be back for Act 2 of Treehouse of Horror VII.
Good evening, future passengers. Are you ready to sit back, relax, and join us on a ride of epic proportions through the mystical land of randomness?
Am I a serial killer if I eat Lucky Charms?
What would it be like if horror characters ran a gym? Who would run spin class?
When a shark jumps out of the water, is it suffocating for that split second?
So join us every week for a brand new derailment with Goobs, Ritkin, and Jenny Bean.
You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Derailers.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and also on YouTube. Have a great night or day, folks.
Back for our second act and our second segment of this Treehouse of Horror, and it is the Genesis tub, which this segment was David Cohen's idea, which actually just makes a lot of sense if you know Cohen as a writer. In this one, it's actually going to be a very Lisa-centric segment. In fact, it opens up with Lisa talking to her school science fair project, which in this case is a tooth. She's trying to prove that soda is bad for your teeth by testing if it will actually dissolve in soda. I do like her line, though. Science has already proven the dangers of smoking, alcohol, and Chinese food, but I can still ruin soft drinks for everyone.
Damn you, Lisa.
Bart also has been working on his science fair project, though he doesn't seem to be putting quite as much effort into it as Lisa has been. He has a balloon stuck to the side of his head, and he just keeps rubbing his sock on the floor and static electric shocking his sister.
Ow, what's that supposed to prove?
That nerds conduct electricity? Zap!
Ow!
Zap!
Ow!
Bart runs off laughing, but it seems that Lisa has retained a bit of her static charge, because when she goes to reset her project, there's a brief moment where her finger actually sends an electric shock to the tooth that's sitting in the bowl of cola.
We're going to go this entire segment without saying, and that's the tooth. That's our goal.
And you just blew it.
Joe!
Lisa nods off to sleep, and the next morning she decides to take a quick peek at her science fair project and is very excited because there's mold.
That science fair paid dirt.
She takes the tub over to her microscope, which, when she first looks, she's like, that's weird. It doesn't look any different. But we zoom out and see that the microscope is set at 1x magnification. So when she brings it to 100x magnification, she realizes something pretty shocking. She's created life, tiny people.
Lisa, breakfast. We're having waffles.
Ooh, waffles. I like just how, gleeful she is at the idea of waffles, though I'm equally amused by the idea that she's so disappointed because they're just square pancakes.
The waffle iron's in the shop.
Aw, the waffle iron's been in the shop forever.
Which I wrote down, maybe it's just because it's been so long ago, but I don't think you take waffle irons to the shop.
See, I was actually thinking that this is just, right on the end of the era that you might have. I feel like appliance maintenance used to be a considerably bigger business, but I also think appliances used to be, made to last for a really long time. And I mean, to put things in perspective, the waffle iron that I own, I paid $4 for on Black Friday. If that bitch stops working, it goes in the trash.
You just buy another waffle maker.
Because that's the American way.
Fuck yeah. Gosh.
But I really do think that they would have... I don't know if, the early 90s it would have still been doing, or mid-90s at this point, that still would have been a thing. That may have been, kind of a throwback joke to, Marge not really being with the times. But definitely at some point you would take your waffle iron to the shop, I would think.
And now we've talked longer about waffle irons than the length of this actual segment.
And that's the tooth.
Oh! I quit. Unless you have waffles.
So, when Lisa left for breakfast, her society that she was very quick to, ignore for waffles...
Not a society.
It was just a prehistoric civilization. But just in the amount of time she had to not even eat breakfast... They had already advanced well past the Stone Age, and she even looks down, it's the Renaissance, though she looks down and one of them is posting rules on the church door.
I've created Lutherans! Which was also a really funny line.
That's a great joke. During the night, again, Lisa sleeps while we see lots of things are happening in the little society she's created. There's lights and sounds coming out of the bowl. And when she wakes up, she actually discovers that she's looking into a little miniature future. Her society is now already advanced well beyond our own.
And then she called the state Minnesota.
That's awful.
That was for my dad.
Nice.
I hated it every time he said that.
But unfortunately, while Lisa is admiring her future society she's created, Bart actually comes in and is giving her crap as he usually does. He takes her science fair project from her, and at first he's genuinely impressed. He's like, whoa, you built an entire model city? But then he immediately starts with the, oops, my finger slipped, and he starts poking at it, which is terrifying to think about what we know and he doesn't.
Well, it just reminds me of like Sim City, except it's real.
Yeah. Lisa looks down and she's horrified that now her futuristic society is like in flames and there's lots and lots of damage done. However, it looks like they're rebuilding already, and we see once again Lisa sleeps while her society is hard at work. And this time we actually get a sequence where we see spaceships or fighter jets of some sort actually launch out of this tooth bowl. And they, in formation, fly to Bart's room and attack him with little mini lasers.
I have a few issues with this segment because Lisa closes the door before she goes to sleep, but the door is clearly open for these jets to go off, and she leaves the tub on the floor. And the only reason I could come up with that is because when the fighter jets come out, they go like under the door, so like I think it's easier from an animation standpoint because if it's up on the table, then they have to fly down before they go through, and it didn't make sense from an animation standpoint. But like the door sequence just bothers me because I feel like it's not something's going on. Someone's opening the door. Maybe they shoot the door open. I don't know, but
maybe a little tiny wizard did it.
Maybe so.
No, I see your point. That's a good observation. I also, though, I'm not bothered by the door as much as I am the bowl just sitting by her bed. Like, that seems like Santa's little helper could come in and, like, sniff too hardly and just, like, do a rail of little tiny people.
Or her cat that sleeps in the room with her with her little footsies could lick it up.
There's lots of things happening here that could go wrong. However, in this case, we do get a really cool sequence of animation, and actually, it's a pretty big moment in Simpsons history, because the sequence where the spaceships attach Bart is actually the very first time that the animators used computer animation to build the models. Now, they went back and they actually went ahead and redrew the sequence, but they actually designed them using a computer model builder.
Huh, very interesting.
Especially noticeable during the part where the ships are flying up Bart's bed, like over his covers, and the covers kind of are lumpy, so it looks like almost like that sequence in Star Wars right before they blow up the Death Star.
I would have never guessed that the computer was being used in that second.
It definitely is an impressive sequence, so you can kind of see it moves really quick and it's pretty sharp, so it does stand out from the rest of the episode, but I wouldn't have guessed it unless they pointed it out as well.
You have to know it before you see it.
These little ships light up Bart. They even fly inside his ear hole and are like, you can see like lasers shooting around his eyes, which is really funny, but my god, that seems like it would not end well for Bart. Bart comes rushing into Lisa's room screaming, "Your micro jerks attacked me!"
Well, you practically destroyed their whole world.
You can't protect them every second. Sooner or later, you're gonna let your guard down, and then flush. It's toilet time for Tiny Town. That's an aggressive line, actually. Again, that's like, we're talking about living creatures at this point, one way or the other.
I mean, Bart may realize that something's living, but to him, they're just ants.
That's true. Just little annoying
fighter jets.
ants in fighter jets. Lisa, though, this is where I think maybe the bowl on the ground may have been another reason right here, is because of this shot. Lisa's sitting in defeat next to her society, and you see it's very similar to the movie Metropolis, is the style of animation they went for with these rings. However, it actually rings, like electric or laser rings, come out of the bowl, surround Lisa, miniaturize her, and bring her, or maybe I should say they de-big her, but they bring her into the society itself.
She Ant-Mans.
Pretty much, yeah. She's dropped on a tooth-shaped throne, and immediately A little mini man that looks a lot like Professor Frink gets very excited.
It worked. The debigulator worked.
And the entire crowd is praising Lisa, and the leader type comes up to her and welcomes her to their world.
Your world is incredible, and you speak English.
We have listened to you speak since the dawn of time, O Creator, and we have learned to imitate you exactly.
I mean, that's pretty close.
I mean, they've only existed for 3 days. They're doing great.
Well, to them, it's been a long, long time, Miles.
Sure. Lisa quickly starts to realize that this civilization views Lisa as a god. And then, even more surprisingly, they think Bart is the actual devil.
Which completely makes sense. I mean, for all we know, Miles, we're some giant people's playthings.
I love that type of idea. Simulation theory, or we're like ants in somebody's really large, what are those called? Ant farms? Yeah, there you go.
It's like the end of the first Men in Black movie.
Mm-hmm. Just the galaxy, man. I do like, though, again, very Lisa as an 8-year-old girl, which is, I always like that they as smart as she can be, they never forget that, but she just starts giggling and is like, Bart's not the devil, it's just my stupid brother. And the town, I mean, like, you would expect them, like, oh my god, that's your brother? Like, they can't believe that
Two of you are related?
Yeah. I do like the townspeople start asking all the questions that people also often ask of the real God in many religions. Like, why do you let bad things happen?
Yeah.
But Lisa explains that she can take care of everything. They just have to unshrink her.
Unshrink you? Well, that would require some sort of a rebigulator, which is a concept so ridiculous, it makes me want to laugh out loud and chortle and... Oh. But not at you. Oh, holiest of gods. With the wrathfulness and the vengeance and the blood rain and the hey, it hurts me.
But unfortunately, he is pretty quickly cut off by screams of terror as Bart, with no one to protect the civilization, is actually stealing it. At first, we don't really know what's about to happen, but we
think it's going to get flushed.
Yeah, you think it's about to go down Toilet Town, but we pretty quickly realize that instead, Bart has decided to enter the science fair himself using his sister's project. And believe it or not, Principal Skinner is blown away and doesn't even question that Bart did this, just instantly announces him the winner. Martin can put those milk carton ukuleles away.
Principal Skinner, wait! I created the universe! Give me the gift certificate!
But then Lisa very quickly has a dark realization as Skinner does not respond to her.
Oh, great. I'm stuck in this lousy tub for the rest of my life.
And she says this out loud in front of all of these people whose whole world is this tub.
Shouldn't you people be groveling?
They immediately do.
And bring me some shoes. Nice ones.
Oh, she'll want socks too. I'll get socks.
And Miles, my guidebook pointed this out, and I totally saw it, is she had slippers on the entire time she was down there until this moment where she no longer had slippers.
Well, even if you had slippers, you'd want more than just slippers. You'd want real shoes.
Yeah, but she's barefoot right there, and where did the slippers go? She hasn't moved from the throne.
That's fair. I don't know.
It makes the joke work. Just say that.
It does. It does make the joke work. So
and that's the truth of the matter.
There it is. This episode, again, is another super dark ending if you really allow it to sink in, because Lisa Simpson now no longer exists in the world that we know it and is very subject to a flushing at any given moment. I do like that she's just kind of, in very Lisa-esque style, is just kind of immediately comes to terms with it, though. It's almost like her whole life of disappointment has prepared for this moment. However, another thing to point out about this episode is this was the central plot of another show episode that we're both very fond of. In 2002, South Park does the episode Simpsons Did It, in which this segment of Treehouse of Horror was essentially kind of the main plot of what they were redoing. And in that plot, they actually point out the fact that not only has Simpsons done everything, they stole a lot of it too. And this one is no exception, because this story is actually a parody of Microcosmic God, which was a novel written in 1941 about a scientist who's frustrated with how slowly it takes for society to evolve. So he decides to create a more rapid evolving society himself and tries to take what he's created and apply it to the real world.
Have we even brought up the fact that this is a Twilight Zone episode?
No, we have not brought up the fact that this is a Twilight Zone episode. Spacemen
land on an asteroid, and one of the astronauts finds the microverse and becomes their god, and he becomes obsessed with power.
So, I guess Simpsons ripped the Twilight Zone, and I'm assuming Twilight Zone ripped that novel. I'm
assuming so, yeah. I thought you were talking about that, and then you brought up 2002, and I was like, that wasn't a Twilight Zone episode then. And then I guess you could go microverse with Rick and Morty as well if you wanted to. Who cares, right?
Yeah, actually, since you bring that up, I'll go ahead and say, during the commentary, David Cohen said that while he was reviewing this episode for the commentary, preparing to talk about the show, he, that point realized that he pretty much reused all three of these plots in future Futurama episodes. So the first one, we see Fry and Amy are sewn together at one point. This one is obviously one of our favorite Futurama episodes, where Bender has the entire civilization growing on him as he floats through space.
Godfellas, which is my all-time favorite Futurama episode.
I think I would have to agree with you. Maybe the dog one, but that one's hard to watch. And last, of course, we have the alien species that essentially has forced them into a life of slavery.
I don't remember that Futurama episode.
I believe it's referring to the one where they end up building like pyramids for
Bender?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the one that they were referencing. Maybe there's another one.
I thought it was like the two Johnsons that look the exact same running for president. I don't know. We'll get there one day, maybe.
Maybe it's both. Who knows?
You want me to be two things?
For now, though, that actually does bring us to the end of our second act. We'll be back for one final segment of Treehouse of Horror VII after this quick break.
Okay, Mr. Most Days Off. Now we're ready for the TeePublic ad.
Head over to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly right now to support our show. Get yourself some Best Darn Diddly merchandise and help grow our podcast. I messed up there. Can I get another take?
Okay, just a second.
Out of the way, amateur. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly. Go to popthreads.com and save 15% with the discount code Simpsons. Hey, it's Krusty. Go to bestdarndiddly.com to get all your podcast needs from the greatest show on earth. Learn from a professional, kid.
All right, Krusty. We're ready for your take. Krusty?
Our final segment is Citizen Kang, which we open up with Homer relaxing on his boat, talking about how great fishing is.
Ah, the old fishing hole. So peaceful and relaxing. Doesn't even matter if I catch a single fish.
There's a brief moment where Homer looks like he couldn't be happier than he could be anywhere else, but that quickly changes.
Come on, you stupid fish! Take the bait! Don't make me come down there!
And then we kind of pan out to see that as Homer is screaming at the fish to bite, a flying saucer is actually pulling up above him. And while Homer's fishing for fish, it seems that none other than Kang and Kodos are fishing for human.
Oh my god! Space aliens! Don't eat me! I have a wife and kids! Eat them!
I do enjoy that. The animation where Homer is underwater for a moment is absolutely brilliant, too, for what it's worth. It's a really, really cool shot. But Kang quickly interrupts Homer's pleas for mercy. Silence! We are travelers from a certain nearby ringed planet whose name we prefer not to mention. My name is Kang, and this is my sister Kodos.
Hello!
This is actually the first segment that the aliens Kang and Kodos have been featured in Treehouse of Horror since the very first Treehouse of Horror segment or episode that featured the segment, Hungry Are the Damned.
Wow, it's been a while.
This is also the episode that establishes Kang and Kodos as sisters, though there are some inconsistencies with that throughout the years that change that up. However, there is an argument from the Simpsons staff that says that we don't know how genders work on their alien planet.
That's a good cover.
Yeah, I agree. So Homer immediately comes to terms with the fact that, I suppose you want to probe me. Well, might as well get it over with, and he starts to take his pants off.
Stop! We have reached the limits of what rectal probing can teach us.
I like that they fully admit that, like, yeah, we used to probe the shit out of people, but, like, now we're good. We've got all we need.
Please, take us to your leader.
Oh, I guess you mean President Clinton? I mean, he usually hangs around Washington, D.C.
President Clinton? Excellent.
Except, there's this election next week, so after that, it might not be him anymore. It might be, what's his name? Mumbly Joe. I saw him on the TV the other... Bob Dole.
I remember that I was excited for this episode because, like, you knew about Clinton and Dole in this time. I mean, we were too young to vote by a long shot, but, like, still you knew what all the stories and the political atmosphere were about at this day and age. So this is kind of a big deal, man, when this episode came out.
This is a big deal, and this is one of the things that I was talking about, how the Simpsons just, like, threw the rule book out of the window when they made this, because they set it in a time frame that, by naming the candidates, it essentially locked it in its place in time. However, I will say that they point out, and I agree, that the message still works. Like, it does, you can kind of in your mind replace the candidates, but it is interesting how very 1996 this is. And part of the reason for that, though, is this premiere episode actually launched on that Sunday, just 2 days before the real life election.
Wow.
So the timing of it was just downright perfect. Plus, since it was the season premiere, that meant that they had, a good amount of time to work on that process and come back strong from their break. There's a lot of reasons why it worked and makes sense and why it still holds up today, even if you really don't know the story of Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton.
Insert freaking Republican, insert freaking Democrat.
Pretty much, actually. And while we're on that, actually, I'll go ahead and bring up that David Cohen brought up the fact that, pretty much any TV episode that tackles this topic almost always has the same message of it doesn't matter who you vote for, like a douche first turd, for instance. Though he says, and I thought this was funny because on the commentary, he said that that's just not true because you have to look at our idiot criminal president right now. That's not Trump, guys. Like, I just want to point out that even though that is a phrase that you might associate, it's commonly people call Trump an idiot criminal all the time. That just goes to show you that this is, in fact, a timeless episode, because the episode's about Clinton and Dole. The commentary was during George W.'s presidency, and it still would apply to what we're dealing with today.
It never goes away.
It just keeps going round, all the way around.
Twirling.
Always twirling forward. So, the aliens decide, you know what? We'll just take care of this by abducting both Bob Dole and President Clinton. They start with Bob Dole, who is coming out of the Republican National Committee, and I just love, he so blandly is like, Bob Dole doesn't need this. Clinton is a little bit more relaxed state, you might say. They actually abduct him straight out of bed, and I love how he's just so confused at what's going on.
What's happening? Is it noon already?
So Dole and Clinton arrive together on the spaceship. They're stripped naked, and they're pushed into a tube.
What the hell is this? Some kind of tube?
Dole's tube quickly fills up with a liquid, and I like Clinton is like, "Oh, thanks for taking care of Dole for me." But of course, his tube also fills up almost immediately. You know, alien technology is funny, Rich, because it seems that the metal bars that go through the middle of that tube height adjust so that they block penises but not butts, because those are not blocked by Fox sensors.
I had that exact same thought while watching this. It's like, I don't understand how they do this. It's almost like some kind of magical alien technology.
And speaking of alien technology, we get the bioduplication machine, which we see Kang and Kodos actually morph into the respective candidates.
Oh no! Aliens! Bioduplication! New conspiracies! Oh my god! Lyndon LaRoche was right!
What? Are you still here? I'm afraid we'll have to dispose of you. Oh. But then when he pulls out a sinister looking, or she, I should say, it's Kang, they're sisters. Again, we don't know how gender works there. Kang actually douses Homer down with rum. That way, no one will believe his stories. And then they just kick him off of the saucer back onto the boat where he started.
And don't come back! And I had to actually look up who Lyndon LaRoche was, who apparently he just died like 2 months ago.
Oh, crazy.
But, yeah, I'm 96 years old, but apparently was basically a cult leader, a political cult leader. This big group that actually weaved their way into politics, not drastically enough to impact anything, but that apparently he was very big into conspiracy theories, and just like everything I read just said like essentially a political cult leader. And I was like, okay, I guess that's one of those dated kind of stretching jokes, but still,
if they rebooted this episode, it'd probably be replaced with Alex Jones.
Sure. I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Alex Jones is?
Nope.
Are you serious right now?
Yep.
Oh my god, dude.
Let me Google Alex Jones after the podcast.
Yeah, okay. Well, you need to talk with Toby, man. They're going to be so disappointed in you. They need to get you caught up with the cult, but that's
Toby never talks to me anymore.
That's for a different podcast. We cut to the next morning where Marge and the kids are watching TV in the kitchen, and Kent Brockman is reporting on the election. With Cat Pay 96, America flips a coin. At an appearance this morning, Bill Clinton made some rather cryptic remarks, which aides attributed to an overly tight necktie.
I am Clinton. As overlord, all will kneel trembling before me and obey my brutal commands in communication.
That's Slick Willie for you. Always with the smooth talk. And right then, Homer comes rushing in, and this is what I reserve for my favorite joke in the episode. Marge, there I was. I just caught the largest fish you've ever seen when I was abducted by a flying saucer. I love so much that Homer still lies about the fish, even though he's currently about to tell what is going to sound like the most unbelievable story ever.
Sure you were, Rummy.
We overhear on the TV again. Senator Dole, why should people vote for you instead of President Clinton?
It makes no difference which one of us you vote for. Either way, your planet is doomed. Doomed!
Well, a refreshingly frank response there from Senator Bob Dole.
Miles, this is not going to be the only time this season that Homer looks drunk and is declaring alien.
Oh, nice. You're absolutely right. I bring you love.
Thank you. I bring you peace. I also want to go ahead and throw this out there right now because we've seen Dole on TV. We saw him while he's being abducted, and then we're about to see him walking around with Clinton. And I noticed that he actually had the whole pin thing in his right hand. And I don't know how many of our listeners know this, but this is, since we're a little bit older than a lot of people now, Bob Dole he was in World War II, if I remember correctly, and he actually suffered like some serious injuries, and his right arm was messed up, and I believe his right hand was messed up, and his left arm, I believe, but he could still move his left arm, but his right hand was pretty screwed. So whenever he had to be in public, they would always put a pin in his hand so that it looked like he was doing something and to distract people. So through this entire segment, anytime you see Bob Dole, even when it's Kang, he's always got something in his right, or a pen in his right hand.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know that. That's great.
The more you know, again.
But we actually do see Kang as Bob Dole giving a speech in front of a large group. Abortions for all!
Boo!
Very well. No abortions for anyone!
Boo!
Abortions for some, miniature American flags for others.
Yay! Figured out our political system in like 2 seconds.
Oh my god, such a great bit. This is
still plays today.
We then see a odd sight for our society as Bill Clinton and Bob Dole are walking down the street holding hands. Fooling these Earth voters is easier than expected.
Yes, all they want to hear are bland pleasantries embellished by an occasional saxophone solo or infant kiss.
A Democratic National Committee van pulls up, and we see apparently this was supposed to be George Stephanopoulos. I did not realize that until I just read that.
Oh.
But they have a little bit of concern. Mr. President, sir, people are becoming a bit confused by the way that you and your opponent are, constantly holding hands.
We are merely exchanging long protein strings. If you can think of a simpler way, I'd like to hear it. It's funny, Miles, because in the script they say that it's Kang saying this, but I thought Kang was Dole, so I think even the script can't tell the difference between Kang and Kodos.
I think Kang is Dole, you're right. We then cut to a face-to-face Dole Clinton debate, which I think it's really funny, apparently has a $5 admission fee. I don't think that's usually a thing.
And is in Springfield, of all places.
Right? They're really hitting the grassroots areas hard, man. My fellow Americans, as a young boy, I dreamed of being a baseball. But tonight, I say we must move forward, not backward, upward, not forward, and always twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom.
Yay! And I have to say, Miles, I always say twirling, twirling, twirling. Anytime anybody talks politics or does anything where they need some kind of direction, I always go to, and twirling, twirling, twirling. This has just, since the very first time I saw this is one of my all-time, not maybe favorite, but it's always stuck in my head. I like seeing him like prance around while he's saying twirling, too.
I've definitely heard you say that a few times, and it is a great sequence. It's really funny to see a Simpsons-ized version of Bill Clinton twirling around during a publicity, or during a debate, I should say.
Yeah.
Homer, though, comes bustling in through the doors, screaming, "Stop! Those candidates are phonies!"
Murmur, 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 murmur.
You heard me. They're alien replicons from beyond the moon. Almost immediately, Homer's literally thrown out on his ass by the Secret Service. And another joke that was a contender, because the Secret Service dude throws a flag after him. Don't forget your stinking flag. And it's an American flag lying on the ground beside Homer. A stinking flag.
Aliens too.
Homer's frustrated that nobody's believing his crazy story, so he goes on a walk and kicks a bush, only to kick metal. We pan out and see it's like a tiny little, like, basket-sized bush, and the entire giant UFO is in plain sight, parked right there behind it.
But he, like, removes the bush, like you can't see what's behind it as it's panning out, and that's what makes it so funny.
Homer finds that Clinton and Dole are still there in suspended animation, and he lets them out of he just lets the gel out of their tube so they can talk again.
Oh no, am I still here? I don't want to serve out my term naked in a tube.
I am so mad at the Secret Service right now. Homer takes control of the ship and starts flying it, which raises a whole lot of questions.
Oh yeah. You know, Senator, being in suspended animation gave me time to think. Partisan politics are tearing our country apart.
You got a point there, Bill. If you and I are going to warp these one-eyed space fellas, we're going to have to set aside our differences.
Together, we can lead America into a new golden age.
Friend, you got a deal.
See, it's so easy to fix everything, Miles.
They do. The Simpsons fix the political system. Unfortunately, though, all this peaceful future rests in the hands of one simple man who does not know how to open the tubes, because when he's asked to release the president and the president hopeful, he accidentally shoots them into space, where we not only see them, like, fly into the void naked, we actually see them take their final breath and die, Richie. It's such a dark moment.
Well, it's from behind, so you just see them kind of like spinning around in the nothingness of space.
But they go motionless. Like, they're clearly breathing, and then they clearly go motionless, like they just died. Like, it's a very dark moment, and I think it was David Cohen on the commentary said that he actually felt really uncomfortable with this joke because they essentially killed the active president and potentially future president on screen.
It's better than what Mel Gibson will do to the whatever president that is in his episode.
Homer's freaking out, though. Oh no, what have I done? What am I doing? What will I do? And in a panic, he just smashes the control panel, which somehow sends him flying straight, literally crashing into the White House.
I mean, it was pinged to their location.
There's a great moment. It's kind of like an episode we'll see later where he's running between the two twin towers. But it's just a long shot where we hear him running through the entirety of the White House out to the front lawn where Bob Dole and President Clinton are debating once again.
The politics of failure have failed. We need to make them work again. Tomorrow, when you are sealed in the voting cubicle, vote for me, Senator K. Bob Dole.
Yay! I am looking forward to an orderly election tomorrow, which will eliminate the need for a violent bloodbath.
Yay!
And Homer interrupts here and immediately actually removes the masks of Kang and Kodos, which brings me back to, weren't they like biochemically reproduced? Like it wasn't a costume maker back on the spaceship earlier. What's that about?
Maybe he hit a button that turned them from their gene spliced costumes into just regular costumes. They ran out of battery life.
Either way, Homer is finally shedding light on the truth that up until now only he knew. America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles.
Swoosh. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it? It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
Oh, wow. He's right. This is a two-party system.
Well, I believe I'll vote for a third-party candidate.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away. We cut to the crowd and we see a very sad Ross Perot smash his Perot 96 hat on the ground. Which, again, Ross Perot might be a figure that not a lot of people recognize unless you were alive at that time. But
and in Texas.
He was actually a very successful by third-party means. He was as successful as a third-party candidate can get. He actually was threatening at moments in the election to actually make an impact. And actually, political reviewers say that he essentially, the votes that were cast for him probably had an effect on the election, taking votes away from Bob Dole.
That makes sense. But he's also kind of like Trump in terms of like already well known before he entered the political election there. So I think that impacted it a lot too.
More than anything, this scene just makes me sad because it's so fucking accurate.
Oh, it makes me laugh, but then be like, crap.
No, it's like, this is where like people get mad because I just say the system is broken beyond repair, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. There's no going back. We fucked it all up. But
unless, Miles, we have an alien to bring us all together.
I hope so. Maybe one day, but I will say, speaking of fuck-ups, the Simpsons got this one wrong, because according to them, Kang won the election, and it was actually, that would have been Bob Dole under those standards. So, however, we already talked about, it seems like they were getting that confused earlier in the episode as well. All hail President Kang. We see the citizens of Earth are now enslaved in chains, hauling rocks and other building materials. Marge even points out, I don't understand why we have to build a ray gun to aim at a planet I've never even heard of.
Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
Probably the most iconic line from this entire episode. And actually, fun fact, they're no longer together, but there is a long-time running ska band from Madison, Wisconsin named I Voted for Kodos.
I think it's funny that Homer stops walking when they're all chained together, yet they whip Marge. Like, Homer stops, and there's this huge gap between them, and the alien person in charge whips Marge to keep going. And I'm like, it's Homer's the one that's slowing him down. And in that instance, if you look in the background, you can see the spaceship is still crashed into the Capitol building.
Capitol, yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That does bring us to the end of the episode. We do get some spooky end credit music and the scream at the end of the episode that's usually over the Gracie Films logo is replaced with a more high shrill and scarier scream.
Oh, okay. Very clever.
Yeah.
The class super.
But that is going to do it for Treehouse of Horror 7. Richie, was there anything else that you or that book of yours wanted to point out about this episode?
The only thing we haven't talked about from my guidebook is that in the last segment, apparently the only one who does not clap during the debate scene is Lisa.
Interesting. She's too smart for that.
Yeah, but other than that, I thought this is a very funny Halloween special. Not that other ones aren't, but like we've talked before in the past, there's certain episodes that you're just like, oh my god, that's really creepy. And I know the first one kind of creeped you out a little bit, but I remember the advertisements for this one. The line that Homer says towards the beginning, I have a whole family, eat them, was the one always advertised as well before this one debuted, like on the reruns and whatnot. But like, I just remember this one always being fun and funny, and I think I just really, really enjoy the Kang and Kodos one, and it's just sad but funny these days.
Yeah, I'll concur with that. The only other thing I'll add before we call it a show is in the year 2000. In the year 2000. Matt Groening himself actually ranked this as his 7th favorite Simpsons episode of all time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So very, very strong. I will say I don't think I like this Treehouse of Horror as much as the previous two, but I still very much love it, and Treehouse of Horror in general will always hold a special place in my heart.
Aw, very nice.
But that's it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Richie, let them know where they can find you online.
If you search, not really that difficult to find me, you can find me on Twitter at TheWiz_Kid23.
I am at Mr. Most Days Off pretty much everywhere, and most importantly, follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. Richie and I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode for a brand new season of the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. We're so grateful to each and every one of you who come along for this ride with us. Make sure you come back and join us again next week for maybe the more official start of the 8th season in terms of canon episodes, and one of arguably the most anticipated episodes that we've had here on this show. We're reviewing You Only Move Twice.
And make sure you can listen to us next week, because that's the only way to exchange long protein streams. If you can think of a simpler way, we'd like to hear it.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Hi, I'm Lainey, host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast. If you're a true crime addict like I am, then my show is for you. I'll peel back the curtain and give you a glimpse into the life and crimes of some of the most demented minds. Check out the episode Broken Bonds and listen to a brother reveal a deeply held secret. Or hear about the day that the heavy metal community will never forget in the episode Dime Bag. These episodes are just a sample of our catalog, so you have plenty to binge. Just search for True Crime Fan Club Podcast in any podcatcher. You won't want to miss an episode.